I was standing on the edge of my family's lake watching the water line crawl backward inch by inch when it finally hit me just how badly the HOA had miscalculated. Their brand new community marina, the one they'd bragged about, advertised, and spent a small fortune on, was sitting high and dry in the mud. Boats dangling uselessly, docks stretching over nothing, and the look on the HOA president's face told me everything I needed to know. This was about to get ugly for her. I never wanted to be the person telling a story like this. I didn't wake up one morning hoping to go to war with an HOA. But when someone decides your property is more of a suggestion than a legal fact, you either roll over or you stand your ground. This lake had been part of my family's life longer than I'd been alive. My grandfather bought the land back in the early 70s, long before luxury developments, gated communities, and HOA bylaws written by power-hungry retirees. 12 acres of water fed by natural springs and rainfall tucked into a quiet piece of land that felt untouched by time. When he bought it, the deed was crystal clear. The lake, the shoreline, the water itself, all privately owned, not shared, not conditional, not something future neighbors could vote themselves into. Growing up, that lake was where everything happened. Summers meant fishing with my dad at dawn, the water glassy and silent. Afternoons meant swimming until our fingers wrinkled. Fall meant watching the leaves reflect off the surface like fire. It wasn't just land, it was history, responsibility. We maintained the dam, managed water levels, handled inspections, paid for upkeep, all the boring, expensive stuff no one thinks about when they're just enjoying the view. For decades, nobody questioned it. Then the development came. Luxury homes started popping up along the ridge overlooking the lake. Big windows, balconies angled just right so the water shimmered below them. The HOA marketed it as a premium natural view. They charged premium fees to match. And that's when I noticed her. The HOA president, Patricia Reynolds. If you've ever dealt with one of these people, you know the type immediately. Clipboard always in hand. Smile that never quite reaches the eyes. Talks about community standards the way preachers talk about sin. She treated HOA bylaws like sacred text and property rights like mild suggestions, open to reinterpretation if they got in her way. At first she was subtle, friendly even. She'd show up at board meetings talking about shared recreational opportunities, about how wonderful it would be if the neighborhood could fully enjoy the natural beauty around them. She never said my name at first, never said the word lake directly, just smiled and let everyone look toward my shoreline like it was already theirs. When that didn't work, she got bolder. She knocked on my door one afternoon and launched straight into it. The HOA, she explained, was always looking for ways to increase property values and resident satisfaction. The lake was an underutilized asset. Wouldn't it be nice, she asked, if everyone could enjoy it, if children could swim safely, if families could dock boats? She framed it like she was offering me a compliment, like I should be honored she'd even considered sharing my property with the community. I told her no, not rudely, not aggressively, just no. The lake wasn't HOA property. It never had been. And I wasn't interested in negotiating something my family legally owned. The smile vanished. She started talking about selfishness, about how refusing to share went against the spirit of the neighborhood, about how my attitude wasn't very community-minded. I listened, nodded, and repeated myself. Still no. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, I woke up to bright orange survey stakes hammered into my shoreline. Dozens of them, perfectly spaced, like someone had marked territory in a land grab. No phone call, no notice, no permission. By the afternoon, construction equipment rolled in. Excavators, trucks, workers unloading materials like they'd been hired months in advance. I stood there watching machines tear into ground my family had carefully maintained for decades, and I felt this mix of disbelief and rage. I can still feel in my chest when I think about it. They weren't building a dock. They were building a marina. Not a small one either. Multiple boat slips, a large swimming platform, a pavilion with a roof and seating for gatherings, solar-powered lights lining the shoreline, and right in the middle of it all, a professionally made sign welcoming HOA residents to their community lake access. Community, lake, access, on my land. When I confronted Patricia, she didn't even pretend to back down. She told me the HOA had a responsibility to act in the best interests of the neighborhood, that the lake was a community resource, that my refusal to cooperate was unreasonable and harmful to property values. She said it with the confidence of someone who genuinely believed she was untouchable. Construction continued for 3 weeks. Every day I watched HOA money collected from people who had no idea what they were really paying for, poured into permanent structures built on property the HOA didn't own, didn't control, and had no legal right to touch. I called attorneys. I pulled old records. I dug through county filings and water rights documents. And while I did that, the marina grew. I won't lie, there were moments I doubted myself. I'd sit at the edge of the lake late at night listening to the construction finally go quiet and wonder if I was being stubborn, if maybe I should just let them have it to keep the peace, if fighting an HOA with unlimited time, money, and entitlement was worth the stress. I felt tired, worn down, angry in a way that didn't feel productive anymore. They were acting like the lake already belonged to them, and part of me wondered if eventually they'd just make that true through sheer force. What kept me going was the paperwork, because Patricia had made one fatal mistake. She'd assumed owning the view meant owning the water. She never bothered to understand how the lake actually worked. My family didn't just own the surface water. We owned the lake bed, the dam, the drainage systems, the infrastructure that controlled water levels and protected the entire area from flooding. We maintained it under county oversight. We followed regulations. We paid for inspections. And one of those inspections required something very specific: periodic drainage. Every decade, the dam had to be partially drained for structural inspection and sediment removal. It wasn't optional. It wasn't flexible. And it had already been scheduled months before Patricia ever broke ground on her marina. 2 weeks before her grand opening, the drainage process began. At first, it was subtle, just a few inches a day, controlled releases through approved channels, perfectly legal, perfectly documented. I didn't announce it. I didn't warn the HOA. I wasn't required to. Patricia noticed almost immediately. She showed up at my property with her clipboard and panic written all over her face. She demanded to know what was happening, why the water was dropping, how this could possibly be allowed. She gestured wildly toward her marina, her voice rising with every sentence. Her docks wouldn't function without specific water depths. The swimming platform would be useless. The entire investment would be wasted. I explained calmly. The drainage was mandatory, approved, scheduled, public record. If she'd bothered to check before building, she would have known. She stared at me like I'd personally betrayed her. By Memorial Day weekend, the water level had dropped 12 feet. What had once been a pristine lake was now a mudflat scattered with shallow pools and exposed lake bed. The marina sat stranded, docks hanging over dirt, boat slips leading to nowhere, the swimming platform resting on muck instead of water. But that wasn't the worst part. As the water receded, it revealed everything Patricia had hoped no one would ever see. The marina wasn't just trespassing. It was illegal. No permits. None. The electrical work for the solar lighting had been done by unlicensed contractors. The swimming platform violated safety codes, and the pavilion's foundation had been poured directly over protected wetlands that extended beyond the normal shoreline. Every single structure was a violation. The county inspector arrived within days, alerted by environmental groups monitoring the drainage. He didn't need long. Cease and desist orders went up. Violation notices stacked up. Fines started at $10,000 and climbed fast. Patricia's marina wasn't just useless now, it was evidence. The HOA emergency meeting that followed was chaos. Homeowners realized they'd funded an illegal construction project that exposed them to massive liability. Patricia tried to propose a special assessment to cover fines and removal costs, but the room turned on her instantly. People were furious. The recall petition started circulating that night. Within a week, Patricia was out. The marina came down piece by piece, dismantled at HOA expense. Contractors hauled away the wreckage. The shoreline slowly recovered. And when dam maintenance finished and water levels returned to normal, the lake looked exactly like it always had. Quiet, private, ours. Patricia's legacy wasn't a community amenity. It was an empty HOA budget and a cautionary tale whispered every time someone talked about shared resources. The lesson was simple. Ownership isn't a feeling, and entitlement doesn't rewrite the law.